Welcome to part 3, which is quite possibly my favorite section. This video covers so many things. I'll try and put a couple timestamps, but I recommend watching this video in its entirety. There is a lot of really good advice in this one. I organized it with tips that are generally for your first couple of gigs and tips for people who are just starting out, but then there are a lot of general tips that is for anyone and everyone. To start, what are your tips for your first few gigs?
Show up early, or at the very least on time.
Have something to take notes with.
I think it's important to always come prepared.
Don't dawdle. The people I think that stand out are the people that when your job finished and you didn't know what to do, you picked up a broom and started sweeping. You started to put some things away. You did not stand around looking like someone who's just wasting your employer's money.
Give yourself grace in the first couple of days, because the people who hired you are learning who you are. You're learning how the place works. So you're not going to be performing at your best right away, but you can show that you're a motivated person, you're teachable, and you're excited to be there.
Try not to be scared.
The first few gigs that I did, I just remember being quite scared and intimidated. Everything felt so large and out of my hands.
I just remember walking into a shop expecting to be not taken seriously, that I was going to be working with people who were going to be really intimidating and that they wouldn't like me. And it's not that way at all. The people that you're going to find in those shops are people like you. They're going to have more skills and they're going to be a little bit used to this process, but you'll be able to learn things from them. They're not as intimidating as you think they'll be.
A good attitude. You might be washing buckets for a little bit of the day, or you're not necessarily going to be used at the height of your skills right away when you're walking onto a new job site, because the people running the job site don't know you, you don't know them. You need to give yourself a little bit of time to get to know each other.
Whatever you are asked to do it cheerfully. Good nature goes a long way when the charge is thinking about putting together a crew.
Get your piece of the job done by the time that the person wanted it to be done or before that.
When you're working on a project, pace yourself on your coworkers. See how fast they're going and match their pace. And if you're working on something alone, I usually try and just channel the efficiency and energy of someone who's been doing this for like 50 years, and that keeps me going at a good pace.
I think on your early gigs, the most important thing is to listen, but also ask questions and understand what you're doing. When you're initially freelancing, you're doing a lot of little jobs, but you're seeing a lot of the big jobs. And it's important to be interested enough that people might be willing to throw you onto some of that stuff. You don't want to just be a cog. You want to be paying attention and asking questions.
When you go onto the job site, go with the opinion that you're going to be learning something that day. I can always be learning something new. And that helps turn around your attitude to be really positive and really engaged.
I consider myself a student every day. Every day I have something new to learn. And so trying to be personable and teachable and proactive. And I really think that everybody has something to teach you. And if you're willing to listen to it, I think it'll always give you an insight into how to solve a problem or a situation in the future.
Learn from every opportunity that you have. I found that the more that I tried to learn from each of the people that I worked with, the more I grew myself as an artist. Every experience that you have is just another experience for your tool belt. Even the mistakes that you make is an opportunity for growth.
What do you recommend for newer freelancers?
The biggest tip that I can give to any theater person that is just starting out is to do summer stock theater. Summer stock can be a really intense experience because you're doing so many shows in a short period of time, but it's not as intimidating as you would expect it to be. You are working alongside a lot of professionals, but you're also working around a lot of other artists who are just starting out or who are even still in college.
When I was first starting out, I wish I knew how to network a little bit better. It's still really important to put yourself out there. I wish that I would have emailed more people and tried and sent out an email with my resume just to be like, hey, I'm out here. Here's my availability and here's some of my skill sets. If you need me, call me. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Move to a city where you know someone who is established so they can help you make some contacts, or they can hire you to overhire for your first couple of gigs so you can meet people.
I think what I wish I had known or thought about when I was starting would be to keep better records of the completed work, but also the process of the work. To have a record is really invaluable. So taking pictures of your process and keeping good notes and knowing what materials you're using and asking questions when you're not in charge of the materials so you know what you're using so that you can easily recreate something. It's really important.
I think the biggest tip I would have would be just don't be afraid to ask. Like sometimes as a freelancer you'll maybe go into a workshop for the first time and you'll be asked to do something and you don't know where anything's kept or where the slop sink is or where certain tools are, but just ask. That's what I found. Probably spent my first few jobs being too afraid to ask and just wandering around looking a bit silly. It's really easy just to ask where the extension cables are, and it's not a stupid question at all.
And now on to tips for everyone.
Be accurate when you present the skills that you have. If you don't know how to do something or know that you don't do it well, I think it's okay to acknowledge that and say, but I'd really like to learn more about it and I'll work really hard for you while you're teaching me how to do it.
I am never afraid to tell people that I might not know how to do the specific thing that they're asking me to do, but I am always excited to learn how to do that.
My biggest tip is be teachable. Assume you don't know everything, because then you get to learn something new. Even if it's a twist on something that you already know how to do, or a completely new thing or product or process that you've never heard of before. You never know what you're going to come up with on the job.
I think probably the most important part of the gig is being able to be flexible in the way you work and the kinds of people you can work with, and taking as much from any experience, good or bad, as you can, and being the kind of person who can stay positive about that.
Bring donuts. Be the person who buys coffee for everyone. Everybody loves the guy that brings donuts, right? And buying coffee for a crew is just a very simple gesture of, hey, let me do a little something for you. I think those sorts of gestures are a great way to start ingratiating yourself to people who might give you work later.
Always say thank you. I throw so many people off by just saying a simple like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And they're like, okay, cool. That's always a good way to get stuck in someone's mind of just being like, oh, she's the girl who says thank you all the time. Let's keep her around.
Try to be an initiative taker. That's something I really value now as a charge. I want people to be asking me the right questions, and I want them to be moving forward in a way that follows my instruction. But I also want them to be capable of putting those pieces together, asking the kind of questions about not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it that way, so that they can be a constructive part of the process and move it forward.
I think that sense of project awareness is an important thing for a scenic artist freelancer to have, to know where your person and your work is in the grand scheme of what this project is. I'm having to paint this thing next to the guy who's laying tile floor, and there's electricians, and there's someone doing sprinkler systems, whatever. It's a bunch of tradespeople in a room, and to know that's not gonna stop because you've got some art to do. None of that's gonna slow down. My artistic ego is not going to stall the overall project in any way. I'll get over myself and make sure the project that you've requested is going to be finished, and I'm going to do it in a way that is entirely cognizant that there's 25 other people that have their job to get done as well. I don't want to be the one who is in any way impeding the work they're doing. I want to be someone who is facilitating ultimately a great finished project.
If you say yes to a job, but another one comes along that pays more, then don't turn around and tell the first job you changed your mind. It always comes back to haunt you, as they will find out. If there is a significant difference in the pay scale and it is an amazing opportunity that will give you a boost to your career, by all means contact the first charge and talk over the situation. Maybe there is a compromise in there somewhere. Or you may have some suggestions for other painters they don't know who you can recommend to take your place.
Carry yourself like a professional, and people will treat you and pay you as one.
If you have an issue, don't let it fester. Make an appointment to talk to the charge. Generally best to go out for coffee or something away from the shop, as it puts you in a neutral area that is more relaxed for you both. Make sure you are clear and ask for guidance and help with resolving whatever it may be. Charges know more than you think they know about situations in as well as outside of the shop.
Try not to be defensive when you're talking to anybody, because it's hard to communicate with barriers up like that. And try and be the best communicator in the room, because that means you're doing a bulk of the listening, you're absorbing a lot, and you're asking good, engaging questions that help you understand what you're working on more.
Jenny also says don't burn bridges, and that if it isn't working out, finish up as amicably as possible and just don't go back. That kind of ties into my own advice of something I thought about is you shouldn't burn bridges, but that doesn't mean you have to walk across them.
Print out business cards so you can leave them with people, because you never know when you might find a fun side gig.
Make a nice kit.
Bring it everywhere you go, even if you don't think you'll need it.
Show up to a job with a kit with your favorite tools.
And that can really, really range depending on where you're going and what you are doing. But always maybe just having your brushes of choice, a tape measure, all of your normal everyday used things, because you're also not always in a regular theater space. You're not always going to have tools ready or at hand, and having your own can be pretty invaluable.
I'm always prepared for things that could possibly go wrong, because I think as scenic artists and then as freelancers, our job is to be a problem solver. We are artistic problem solvers. And to be prepared for anything and everything that might come, even if it's just be able to solve it with the little things that are in your Mary Poppins bag.
I wish that I knew what my value was, but maybe in the beginning I was not as valuable as I am now.
I think maybe my biggest tip for a freelancer is to know the worth of what you're doing. When I was first starting out and I'd get on a big job site and I'm surrounded by tradespeople who are doing all of these things, and then you find out, well, this building that I'm going to paint this little cloud ceiling in just spent $125,000 on half of the sprinklers or something like that, right? And you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. Well, but hold on a second. The guy that installs the sprinklers, yeah, that's clearly very important to the integrity of the building, yada, yada, yada. But it isn't necessarily different from what you're doing. The client is paying that company or that person for a skill and a service that the client is unable to do themselves. Painting the way that we do, not a lot of people can do that. It is a worthwhile skill and a rare one, and it is worth money, but it's up to you as the freelancer to decide how much the market can really handle paying you. It's a skill that the client doesn't have and needs done. There's no reason that I should discount what I'm doing or make it less valuable because it's art or because it's fun. It's still a skill that I've honed over a lot of years, and you're gonna have to pay for it.
Another really good tip from Jenny is understand the parameters of your contract. When you start and end, the length of the day, overtime, meal breaks, payday, parking, transportation, lodging if it is necessary. That's really important because I know that I personally sometimes just get so excited when someone offers me a job. I'm like, yes, I'll do it, whatever. And then I forget to ask, how much are you paying me? So don't get carried away.
Also, ask questions. Everybody's an amateur when they start, so just keep going. It'll stop being amateur hour eventually.
Ask the charge, not another scenic, what they may have meant by the directive.
The biggest advice that I could give to a freelancer is knowing when to ask people for help. Knowing when to reach out to friends or family or other artists in the community. If you need work, if you need someone to listen, if you need someone to just be there for you, because it can be incredibly isolating. You're not working at one place regularly. You're not seeing the same people every day. You may not see your friend every day. And it can be isolating and scary because the work is not regular and you're sort of in this constant state of uncertainty. And as an artist and as a human being, you need people that are there supporting you and helping you through it.
Just surrounding yourself with a good core group of friends, because it can be a little lonely sometimes if you don't see the same people every day. During those off seasons, you feel that a little more, not seeing like-minded people every day. And so then I think that what you want to do is having friends and enjoying those little moments.
Join organizations like the Guild of Scenic Artists who are there to sort of connect and support like-minded individuals. When I first started out in this, all I had was my immediate colleagues that I could ask questions to when I came across a project I didn't know how to approach. Google isn't helpful for a lot of scenic things that we do. So an organization like the Guild is great to be a forum for asking questions and getting access to the experience of people all over the country. I think that's really valuable. But as an officer and founding member of that organization, I'm speaking entirely with a bias. But, what do you do?
We're really assets to each other. That's always been one of my favorite things about the community. Everybody's on a team. It's really been a really nurturing kind of a community. People who really love what they do and want other people to enjoy it and do it.
Just do it till it's not fun anymore. Do it for as long as it's suitable for you. Do it for as long as you enjoy yourself and you can go to bed feeling like you are excited to get up again and do it all over again. If you're not careful, you can get burnt out. And if you are burnt out, I don't think that there's anything wrong at all with trying something new. I think sometimes as artists, we have a bit of an imposter syndrome and you're like, can I even do this? And is this even worthwhile? And I honestly think it's only worthwhile until you decide that it's not.
It's fun. It should be fun. If it stops being fun, then maybe it's time to think about doing something else. I've always felt really gratified that the people I'm working with feel very much like my kind of people. That's always been sort of a comfort and like a feeling like you're in the right place.
Just do it. Yeah, it's scary, but it's totally worth it.
I think the only other thing that I'd have to say is to just stay passionate, keep pursuing, and just don't give up. Know your worth, love yourself, love your job, don't give up. Even if it feels like it's hard, just keep going.
I know this video is a little long, but I hope you found something useful in the advice and experience of others. I would love if you would comment any additional advice that you have for freelancers.